mothers, our grandmothers, our wives, our sisters, they all deserve their flowers. So to all the women, just take your flowers.
Yeah.
As the world commemorates International Women's Week, we turn our focus on a critical issue: investment in the girl child, the role of the public and private sector. Education, healthcare, technology, and entrepreneurship, these are key sectors where investment in the girl child can lead to long-term national development. But the question is, how far has Nigeria gone? Over the past decade, international efforts have intensified to bridge the gender gap in education and economic opportunities. However, while there has been progress, gaps still remain. According to a recent UNESCO report, over 130 million girls worldwide are out of school due to financial constraints, cultural barriers, and inadequate infrastructure. In response, both public and private sector players are taking bold steps to address this disparity.
Through policies like free education for girls, scholarship and mentorship programs, Nigeria is seeing a rise in school enrollment and skill acquisition. However, Nigeria must do more to ensure these investments lead to real empowerment and economic independence. Despite these efforts, challenges persist, ranging from limited funding and policy enforcement to social norms that still restrict girls' access to opportunities. Experts agree that stronger collaboration between governments, corporations, and non-profit organizations are needed to accelerate progress. It's clear that while strides are being made, there is still a long way to go. The future of millions of girls depend on consistent investment and commitment from all sectors. Now let's turn to our guest who will weigh in on what more can be done to bridge the gap. Let's welcome the Executive Director, Policy House International, Taiwo Akereli. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Nice to have you.
It's good to have you. I would have told you Happy International Women's Day, but you are a man.
but it's good that it's the man that wants to speak for the women, with solidarity with our women.
He for she, so it's a good one.
We are surrounded by women.
Exactly.
It's good to have you. Well, let's jump straight into the conversation. According to UNICEF, about 10.5 million children aged from 5 to 14 are out of school. And out of this number, a staggering 7.6 million are girls. Could it be that despite efforts to get more children enrolled in schools, there's no strategy deliberately targeting the girl child?
Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, thanks for having me. I want to congratulate all our women for this year's 2025 International Women's Day. You did a very rich background. You know, the concept note around this discussion was very rich in terms of reviewing all the efforts that have been made by both local and international actors to ensure that women are mainstreamed into the main sectors of the economy, political, and of course social environment, and of course the entire ecosystem. But the efforts have not been far-reaching, and the issues are very clear. Traditionally, over the years, even before Western education, women have always been discriminated against. So in the last 60 years, post-independence, Nigeria has made effort to mainstream women into the economy, political, and of course the economic scheme of things. But these efforts have been undermined as a result of our cultural practices, religious discrimination, and of course so many beliefs. So in the last few years, a lot of efforts have been made to ensure that women are brought into the scope of things. But you discover that the optics, the data, doesn't speak to the efforts that have been made. For example, you just made mention of the issue of out-of-school children in Nigeria. If we have 10.5 million children that are out of school, I can assure you that 80% are women. If there are kidnapping of children in Nigeria or any part of the world, I can assure you that if we have 10 kids kidnapped from school, 10 of them must be women. If there are rape cases, of course, chances are that women have been raped. If there are elections and people have lost the election, the chances are that women are the ones who have lost, right? And, you know, so many, you know, then if there are employment opportunities, the chances are that women will be discriminated against, maybe on account of marriage, on account of cultural practices, on account of child. Then even the issue of reproductive rights, women are not getting fair share, right? Then look at our investment in maternal health, infant care. You know, so many things are against women as we speak. But what is our response as a government? What has been our response as a people? I know that government has made effort to ensure that women are mainstream, but apparently the policies are not far-reaching. And it's very disappointing that when you see, you know, government trying to empower women, they go empower them through grinding machine, keke napep, you know, sewing machine and all that. All these have not amounted to any significant, have not cumulated into what we expected as a society. There must be adequate investment in education. Women must be protected from rape. Women must be, our girls in schools must be protected against being kidnapped. And of course, people should no longer be forced into early marriages. You know, all these things are what is, undermining government effort to ensure that women are empowered. So as we celebrate the 2025 Women's Day, which is tagged, for women and for girls, empowerment, rights, and equality. And these three things are divided into three major components: political, economic, and social, right? So when we look at the social part, it's very damning. When you look at the economic part, it's very... When you talk of poverty, women are poorer than men. When you look at the number of people who are involved in prostitution, 70 to 80% of people who are involved in prostitution are women. And it's as a result of poverty, as a result of, basic education, lack of basic education, lack of skills acquisition, right? And of course, discrimination against them. Then when there is when there's collapse in marriage, women suffer the most. So all these combined together have not allowed us to make progress as a society. All these combined together have not made us to really celebrate women in Nigeria. And effort have to be made cumulatively by all parties to ensure that our women are mainstream.
Okay, in an attempt to mainstream our women, I understand that in Nigeria or in Africa, one major impediment we do have are cultural issues.
Yes, absolutely.
And religion.
Absolutely.
And no matter what we try to do or what government wants to do, so long as we have not addressed these cultural barriers or this religious barrier, we don't want to go far, because people oftentimes push those barriers forward. So what exactly can be done? Okay,
so for me, we can divide this issue into two major sides or components, as I said. There's the government part, and of course, there are the citizens part. The citizens have significant role to play. Traditional rulers have significant role to play. And of course, community leaders have a lot of role to play. Religious leaders as well. Because no matter the kind of policies that have been put in place by government, if there's no buy-in by our religious leaders, if there's no buy-in by our traditional leaders, definitely it cannot be implemented and it will not be impactful. There will be huge resistance. For example, in northern Nigeria, as we speak, there are so many states and communities that don't allow women and girls to go to school. As we speak,
that's a fact.
It's a fact. And meanwhile, some people attribute it to religion. But I said, no. In some of the seminars and papers I have presented, I have data to show that Saudi Arabia don't discriminate against women going to school. Kuwait, Qatar, these are Islamic countries that have invested significantly in women education and rights. So it is not about religion. Because if it's about religion, Saudi Arabia will not be making the kind of progress they are making, technology-wise, and tourism-wise and otherwise. Kuwait, the same thing. Oman, Qatar, these are Islamic countries, and they are doing well. And their women have been educated. You will never hear that girls have been kidnapped from school in Saudi Arabia, that women have been raped in Oman or in Kuwait. So there are other issues and other factors that we need. So the traditional rulers in northern Nigeria have to sit up. Religious leaders have to sit up in Nigeria and say, enough is enough. There must be that consensus among our leaders, both at the National Assembly, in the executive arm of government, at the sub-national level, and say, okay, enough is enough. This is 21st century. The time, that era where women are discriminated against is over. Evidence abound that women have contributed significantly, educated women have contributed significantly to accelerated technological advancement in the Western region, in the Western world, in Europe and in America. Then, of course, our women are also doing so well in terms of SME, even though they are informal. Go to the streets. Who are the people doing the small businesses? The women. Who are the people taking care of our children? The women. Who are the people doing multiple tasks? Women. So you can imagine additional investment in women education, additional investment in skill acquisition for them, additional investment in getting them to have access to reproductive rights. You can imagine the kind of progress we'll make as a country. So it is in our own self-enlightening interest to ensure that women are educated, women are given enough access to credit to accelerate their businesses. The private sector has a significant role to play around this. So that whatever government is doing, and whatever the traditional rulers are doing, and all the stakeholders, there will be a cumulative effort geared towards ensuring that our women are empowered. So that in the next 5 years, we can sit down and say, okay, we have made progress. What else do we need? What steps do we need to take further to reduce these issues around us?
Okay. Well, Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, launched a program called the Alternative High School for Girls. The school prioritizes empowering the girl child by providing opportunities to learn, unlearn, and embrace quality education. How significant and far-reaching is this kind of intervention in ensuring access to education for girls? Okay,
so thank you very much. That's a very valuable contribution by the First Lady. In fact, congratulations to her, because over the years she has been very passionate about girl child, about women empowerment. So this is not her first time of focusing on women rights and empowerment. However, there must be synergy between her initiative and that of the entire ecosystem around the federal government. Whatever she's doing must be in line with whatever the Ministry of Women Affairs are doing. Because the Ministry of Women Affairs have, linkage and communication with the 36 states of the Federation. Then the governors, the Nigerian Governors Forum, also have to buy in. Then the Ministries of Women Affairs across Nigeria also have to buy in, so that the First Lady, giving them that political backing, can help ensure that the resources that have been made available percolates and is distributed nationwide. Because whatever she's doing should not be in isolation of what the steps that the Nigerian Governors Forum are doing, the Ministries of Women Affairs are doing. Because we have so many initiatives around, but this is the first time a First Lady is helping to coordinate. And if she coordinates and gives that political capital, that mileage, and speak to governors, particularly in northern Nigeria, because the number speaks very clearly that the issues that we have in this country, particularly around women and girl child, is mostly in northern Nigeria. If we have 100%, 70% is in northern Nigeria. So we must reach out. We must reach out. The number of out-of-school children, northern Nigeria. Number of people who are in the streets, children begging for alms, northern Nigeria, basically. And even when you see some of these children begging in southern Nigeria, 70% of them are still from the north. We cannot run away from the reality of things. And that leadership, that political consensus is highly needed at this time to ensure that the numbers that are staggering in our faces and giving us embarrassment at the national and international level is completely eliminated. But that political leadership is required. So I really want to congratulate the First Lady for giving that leadership, for providing that leadership, and for giving that coverage to ensure that some of these issues are addressed head-on.
Okay. It's saddening to note that most times when some of our political leaders count on the invaluable contributions of women, it's when they want to use them as political tools, probably during the election. And you rightly pointed out something that if you look at the small scale businesses, that the involvement of women is huge. Now, absolutely. Shouldn't that be an avenue where government can now zero in and say, okay, we can create intensive economic empowerment for these women, because if a woman is economically empowered, she can cater more for her family. She can cater for herself. She cannot have a voice because she has economic power. So can that be used as a tool, whether it's in the north or in the south?
Okay, so when you are talking of small and medium scale enterprises, you are looking at access to credit. You are looking at aggregation of people. You are looking at setting up cooperatives. You are looking at the National Social Register. There are different windows that have to be. You see, one thing about Nigeria is that Nigeria has a structure to assist the citizens to live quality life. There are so many initiatives that have been, established over time, from the Obasanjo's regime to the Yaradua to Jonathan, and even right now to the President Tinubu's era. So many initiatives that has to do with social investment. But it's about coordination. It's about, data management. It's about reaching out. It's about that leadership. That management has to be there. So when you're looking at SMEs, we have SMEDAN. We have social protection program. We have social investment program all over Nigeria. So it's about where are the people? Where are the numbers? How do we aggregate? Who is providing leadership? How do we reach out to these people? Are we looking at short term? Are we looking at long term? Or are we looking at the medium term, framework? We must set up that machinery that will, essentially just using all the resources that have been made available across Nigeria to reach out to our people, to ensure that all the initiatives, are actually targeted at the people that are supposed to benefit. But when it is hijacked at the national level, and there's no synergy between the subnationals, which is the states, and the local government, and, by the way, the local government are very significant, but nobody talks about local government anymore in Nigeria. But meanwhile, the local government is supposed to be the closest to the people. Arm of government to the people. But today, they have been hijacked. Nobody is looking at local government. So the president has to provide that leadership. The Federal Minister of Justice has to provide that legal framework to say that these resources have been made available. It should not be misappropriated. It should not be looted. And we also have to have a result framework that look at monitoring and evaluation, accountability, reporting, to say we have 10 million children that are out of school this year and we want to reduce it in the next 5 years. How do we account for it? Who are the people managing the resources? How do we follow the data? How do we monitor the results? And who do we report to? These are some of the issues. It's not that these things don't exist, but it's about somebody sitting up and providing leadership, providing coordination, so that in the final analysis, some of these policies that have been, expounded at the national level, that structure to ensure that it percolates to the targeted audience is achieved. These are my thoughts.
Well, in ensuring education for the girl child, there are some critical factors that do not seem to be getting priority attention. One of them is the early marriage, like you hinted on earlier.
Yeah.
Well, this seems to be a cultural factor that has defied different policies formulated by government. How can this kind of cultural factor be pulled down?
Thank you very much. The issue of early marriage is both political and cultural. The politicians try to play politics with it. We've seen a senator marrying a 13-year-old girl in this country some 10, 15 years ago. And he justified it that he's allowed in the religion, in his own religion. But under the law, what does the law say? Is a girl supposed to be 18 years or 16 years before she gets married? Or is a girl, immediately a girl starts seeing her ovulation or something like that, then she's mature to get married? It's a very controversial issue. But we as a country have to sit up to say, what does the international law say? What is the marriage age that is acceptable internationally? Is it 18 years? Is it 21 years? Is it 16 years? We need to have that consensus. Otherwise, we'll continue to abuse that window that, is too lax. It's too lax and people are taking advantage of it. The political class have to be very, very responsible. The National Assembly have to be very, very firm in letting Nigerians know what is right and what is wrong. And when a politician is wrong, we should not manipulate the law to protect him or her from being prosecuted because of his or her influence in the society. So for us in social protection ecosystem worldwide, we are very concerned about the abuse of that window that has been created, where we don't even know what is the marriage age, what does the law say, and what does the religion say, what does the culture say. There are three issues here: the political, which is the law; the cultural, which is what we met as a people; then, of course, the religion, which was imported either from Europe or from Saudi Arabia. So these are the issues. But there must be a national consensus around protection for the girl child. We must not allow the girl child to be married out when she has not finished her secondary school, when she has not learned a trade, when she is not economically independent, because data shows that when women are married out to a man and that lady is not economically empowered, that lady is not educated, the chances are that she will be dependent on her husband, and when there's a divorce, she's now vulnerable with her children And at the end of the day, she'll be involved in so many things that are not palatable and not to the detriment of society.
Yeah, let's look at this aspect.
Yeah.
Is it because, does it seem that we do not have a national policy? Because as politicians, the first thing the politician thinks about is, I must win the next election.
Absolutely.
So even if you look at it like you're analyzing from the north and you happen to be a politician in the north,
yes,
the first thing that will come to your mind is, if I move against the cultural practices
of my people,
I might not win the next election.
Yes. Yeah.
So you align. If I move against their religious belief about women, I might not win the next election.
Absolutely.
And because our type of politics also is a game of number.
Yep.
So how do we push this further? Because it's easy for us to analyze, but when we face the issue,
reality,
it's about politics, about winning an election. Do we have a national policy that empowers the girl child? So no matter where you come from, no matter the religion or cultural belief, the national policy rights above whatever. Do we have such?
There is a national policy, which is that a girl must be 18 years old before she's married.
And just that?
Yes.
That's about marriage.
That's about marriage.
The Child Rights Act enacted in 2003 rather, domestication of that law has not been holistic, and even states that claim to have domesticated it is not fully implemented yet. How can states be encouraged in this regard because of the rights of children?
Thank you very much. In 2007, I was privileged to be a panelist at Abeokuta when the entire Houses of Assembly in Nigeria met in Abeokuta to adopt the Child Rights Act, where it was agreed that every state must domesticate. But as we speak, I think this is like 18 years or 17 years after, only 24 states have domesticated the Child Rights Act. So remaining 12 states, what has happened? What are the issues? Is it that there is no political will for this law on Child Rights Act to be domesticated by the political class in those 12 states? And coming back to the 24 states that have domesticated it, how fully have they been implemented? Because the Child Rights Act has so many components about access to education, access to health, child abuse. There are so many components around it, but how have they been implemented? If you even go to some of the states that have adopted it and passed it all, you still see some of these things. There have been, children are not in school. Children are being made to hawk when they are supposed to be in school. Children are being abused by their foster fathers or foster parents. Girls are being raped, and nobody is being prosecuted. So it's not just about also passing the law; it's about enforcement. We need the governors to sit up. The governors are not just elected to play politics, to construct roads, to build hospitals without doctors, or to build schools, but they are elected to ensure that laws are enforced and that lawbreakers are not just prosecuted, but they are sent to jail. So the governors have a significant role to play, particularly in those 24 states that have passed the laws. The houses of assembly also have responsibility to have an oversight as to how these laws are being implemented. And there should be periodic review to see how far have we gone. The correctional centers have a role to play. The Nigerian police have a role to play. Immigration have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play. The civil society guys have a role to play to ensure that the Child Rights Act that have been passed and domesticated by the state are implemented. And of course, there should be periodic report by the governors to the Nigerian Governors Forum on how far these laws have been implemented. If these laws are actually being implemented by the 24 states, I can bet you that 70% of the problem we are having around prostitution, around children begging in the street, begging for alms, and children being abused will have been eliminated. But unfortunately, because there's no oversight as to how these laws are being implemented, the impact, the reporting, accountability, these clear issues are completely omitted and missing from our framework. And there should be a national consensus. And the Nigerian Governors Forum have a significant role to play in this. It's not just for them to come to Abuja, meet, talk about money and all of that. There should also be, all these things are also supposed to be on the table. Because we have enacted these laws, but we are not feeling the impact. And we cannot continue to pretend over it.
Exactly.
Because by March next year, we'll be here again to celebrate International Women's Day. And we will still be talking about the same issues. But we are tired. And yet we have a leadership, we have a democracy, we have a government, We have the National Assembly, we have the executive, we have the legislature, and we have the judiciary. Everybody must play their role. If people are not playing their role and there's no synergy and there's no accountability, then of course we'll continue to discuss these issues, and Nigeria will continue to be on the lower radar of its national ranking when it comes to women and child rights.
All right, we'll still discuss more on this, but we'll take a short breather now. Don't go.
Chess piece moves. Be kept informed. Watch analysis of major happenings in the political space and how it affects you. Watch Politics on Sunday.
We're glad to have you back. You're still watching TVC Breakfast, and we're live from our Abuja studio. We're still talking International Women's Day, and with us in the studio is Taiwo Akerele. Now, let's talk about stigma and the culture of silence. It's still a big issue in protecting the girl child. How do we break the culture of silence and create a safe space for girls who suffer abuses and face several hurdles in accessing education?
Thank you very much. The issue of silence and people not being able to speak out as a result of, what will people say? How will the society view them afterward? It's a key issue. It's a very thorny issue. So in our advocacy work, we encourage victims to speak out. Unfortunately, the institutional mechanism to support them is lacking. The Nigerian police have a significant role to play, right? The right of information, right to secrecy, right to confidentiality are all missing in this country. So when a girl is raped, for instance, the first thing that occurs to the family is, okay, how will the public perceive our daughter afterward? If we report this, what is going to happen? Will there be justice? Will the person who has committed this crime not be freed? And will our daughter not be subject to additional danger even after this time? So that institutional mechanism to support victims must be strengthened. And that's why I talked about, legal frameworks before now. I talked about leadership consensus to ensure that whatever we have agreed as a country, we look at it headlong and we provide leadership. People must be encouraged to speak. It's not just the girl child that is abused in this country. A lot of boys, young boys, from available data to us in Policy House shows that boys from 14 years and up to 21 years have been abused. But how will a boy come out and say he has been abused? How will you report it in Africa, particularly Nigeria? And how will the society view the boy afterward? So it's not just about the girl child, it's also about the boy child. It's about our cultural orientation and background. We must rise up from such practices and say, no, enough is enough. And the Nigerian police must come out to encourage people to speak out, right? The Nigerian police must also protect those victims who have come out and boldly. And the prosecution must be thorough and diligent. We should not be, we should not be negotiating out of court for people who have been accused of abusing women, or people who have been accused of abusing, children. There should be no longer settlement out of court. We should no longer be sending miseries to the parents of those who have been abused to say, enough is enough, you don't know tomorrow, we don't know how this one will look, we don't know who is going to be of help to. No. These are some of the issues that are affecting prosecution in Nigeria. And we must sit up to say, no, enough is enough. And, those kind of, perception that this lady has been abused, she's a rape victim, nobody wants to do business with her, nobody wants to, talk about, nobody wants to have any relationship. We must put an end to all of that because the world is moving. The world is moving and Nigeria cannot afford to be the laggard of the world, to be the laggard of Africa.
Okay. I quite like the aspect you said of victim protection. Yes. I think that is one thing that we lack in this part of the world.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes there's a victim who speaks out. And the next thing is you find the victim on social media. People place the victim on social media. Yes. And the social media will never forget.
Yes.
Now, when those things happen and there is no sanction against those
who have committed the crime.
No, apart from those who committed the crime, who put the pictures, the video of such minor victim on social media, you have a lot of other people that won't want to come out.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to come out to speak about what has been done to me.
So the issue of sanction is key.
We only look at the abuser. We don't look at the other people who decide to take advantage of that because I want to trend and put it there.
Yeah. So that also comes to the issue of law enforcement. What legal framework is in place to ensure that those who, who go on social media to, to scandalize victims are penalized. Do we have the laws? No, the laws does not. The police are only using their initiative. And that's why lawyers try to manipulate the legal system to get some of these things out. And the social media is supposed to be used positively. The social media is supposed to be used to advocate for justice for those who have been raped. Social media is supposed to be used to advocate for justice for those who have been abused. But unfortunately, we try to show them as, I don't know, we just try to, play it up and say, this lady has been abused. She's from so family. She's this, she's that. She's
the
been,
marketing,
so it's a whole lot of issues. So that nexus, we must create a nexus between law enforcement, sanction, prosecution, and of course penalty. If there's no penalty for such, people will continue to practice it, and victims will continue to go back to their shell without coming out, because you are afraid that you don't know how the social media is going to read, your report, and how the police is even going to handle your case, right? We have had cases, even though people play about it, you go and report to a police station, the police will be asking you, how did you get there? Do you know him before? Did you walk to the man's house by yourself? Or some questions that are not relevant to the issue at stake. So that capacity building, that institutional strengthening for the Nigerian police, the correctional centers, and all the people involved in the prosecution value chain has to be strengthened to ensure that there's justice in the end for victims of abuses.
Well, we must thank you very much for your time with us on the program, sharing your thoughts and shining more light on the plights of women. We do hope that, the women get their voices heard and, are protected at all realms and, also involved in issues that matter. Thank you so much.
And I hope that by next year, when we come back here, we will be celebrating the progress that have been made by Nigeria.
Of course.
And we'll be looking at the number of women who have been voted into offices, women who have now been made ministers, number of people who have been sent to jail on account of diligent prosecution for abusing our women and all of those things. We want to see the numbers crashing. We also want to see the number of our women who are enrolled in school rising. We want to see the number of rape cases reducing by 2026.
We look forward to that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from us here in Abuja. It's back to you in Lagos.